So in this video I'm going to talk about the cactus trough. I've done a couple of other videos about how I made it and things, so you can watch the other videos about that. This is more a following update just to say how the plants have grown and how well it's worked as it's rolled as a cactus trough. So this sits on my living room window in that space that you can see there, so it fits it perfectly. And the main reason I built it is because if I had all of these plants in individual pots, there wouldn't be space on my windowsill for all those plants. So I decided to make this trough to fit them all in. I've removed a couple of plants, but these are mostly all the original plants that I put in it a few weeks ago. The only difference is that I had a jade plant at this position, but it was growing too large, so I put an opuntia in here. And then the aloe vera grew far too large, so I had to remove that, and it's already starting to get quite big again, so that will probably have to be removed. So I'll just tell you a bit about all the plants and their history and things. They're from all different sources. So I'll start on the left. So I've got an opuntia here, an aloe vera, and an aloe vera, I think that's variegata, that one, or something like that. Those three were bought from the garden centre where I used to work. They were quite a lot smaller, especially this one. This was really small, whereas these ones haven't grown as much, but they're also growing. I've had them in here for about 6 months. They're doing quite well. This cactus here, along with this cacti, this tall one there, and yes, those cacti were bought from Homebase. I think they were something like £1 each. This is a strange variety where it has the mutation where it grows flat, so that's going to be like a kind of a coral shape. This one grows very tall. It's actually tripled in height since I got it. I'll just come down this side so you can see it better. It's tripled in height since I got it, and this grows about, I looked up in the wild, it can grow 2 or 3 meters tall. And it gets covered in white fluff when it gets older, so that's quite an interesting one. And going along, the next one is, this is one that I have a cutting of. It's basically a young cutting from a plant that I've been growing for about 10 years back home. So that one's quite an old one, but it's new for this pot, the cutting. This opuntia is from a work colleague who had a bit that broke off, so I just took the cutting and planted it, and you can already see it's got some top growth going, so that's doing quite well. Then I bought a few larger plants from my old work. I bought this cactus here, and this one, this ball-shaped one, and this larger one here. They've been growing fairly slowly. I mean, because they're round, it's very hard to figure out if they've been growing or not. This one has swelled up and it's looking quite nice. As with this one's grown the least. But this one here, I think I've identified it as a saguaro cacti, which is one of the tallest in the world, one of the biggest. I'm not entirely sure if it's a saguaro or a similar cardone one, so I'll have to look it up more to figure it out. But this is actually grown quite a lot. Originally, it was actually about this tall, so it's grown a good inch already, which is quite good because it's actually quite a slow growing cactus, and it's starting to grow some extra ribs, so I think it's going to get quite fat in a few years time and I'll have to replace that. Oh, I just remembered I also got this one at the same time, which I believe is a type of opuntia again, and this was originally, the tallest one was only about that tall, so that's grown a good, each one's grown a good third taller, so that's getting really quite big. That shouldn't branch too much more. It has got a little branches at the side, but this will mainly just grow taller and taller, and as it gets older these green or leaflet things will fall off and they'll be replaced with very big spines. So that's doing well. From my old garden centre, my girlfriend also got this. The name evades me at the moment. I'll put it up on the screen now when I remember it. And this is a very similar relative of it, and these bought at a similar time. This one's a bit older, it's just been growing taller, but it hasn't been growing any wider, whereas this one here has been growing quite a bit wider and it's growing quite big, so that might have to come out at some point. The aloe vera is a cutting of a cutting from a friend from a few years ago. That keeps growing really fast, so eventually that will have to be removed completely. The prickly pear here, which is another type of opuntia, is growing the fastest and the best. I mean, I've had this less than a year now, and it was just that one pad at the bottom. Then in the first few months it grew one pad, over the summer it grew a second pad, and then late summer it grew this third pad up here. So it's done really quite well. Now originally I got this one as a cutting from Switzerland, that opuntia, about 4 years ago. And then I moved the mother plant back up to North Scotland, and this is basically a cutting from that. So it's a cutting of a cutting, and it just keeps growing so many. The mother plant is probably about 3 times the size of that, so it's a really very fast growing cacti. The last one here is the rat's tail cactus. As you can see here is long shoot. That was also a cutting from Switzerland, so it's a similar age, and that again is a cutting of a cutting. You can see the original part was just from here to there, and then it's grown this long one here and then another one up there, and it's starting to grow this small one down there now. And that's a fantastic, the rat's tail cactus has really nice flowers, and it's very easy to take cuttings. I mean, you can already see it's trying to take root already, so it's a plant that just takes root very readily. I don't think if there's any other cacti. I think that's all the cacti in this trough. I did have a bit of problem with mealybug. You can just see some of the fluff at the top, the very brightest white fluff that isn't around the spine, just from mealybug. So that's been a bit of an issue. But what I've done is I've just got the spine here from a cactus, and I basically just stab the mealybug and pull them out with that, because it's very hard to get in between the spines, and the pesticide doesn't really get rid of the mealybug because it has to get through all the fluff, and the fluff protects it. So I found stabbing it with a cactus spine is the best method for removing them, and since I've done that I haven't seen any new mealybug, so it seems to have solved the problem, but I'll just have to keep an eye out for that. So that's the cactus trough. I'll do another update at some point to show you how it keeps growing, and I'll probably have to take out cacti as they get too big, and I'll put in new ones. So it's constantly changing, and it looks really quite good on the windowsill.